Not even the rain could stop this parade. The 500 Army Reservists were determined to make their presence felt in Newcastle. The parade was also to signify the completion of a 16-day camp at the Woolaroo State Forest, north of Raymond Terrace. Each member of the Army Reserve is required to attend a 2-week camp at least once a year, and this year the ranks were made up of battalions from Pymble, Lismore and Newcastle. Saturday morning shoppers lined the mall to watch the impressive passing parade. From there, the procession made its way to a walk past at the Newcastle City Hall, which was witnessed by the Lord Mayor, Alderman Joy Cummings, and the Regimental Colonel of the Royal New South Wales Regiment, Major General Gordon Maitland.
Five schools entered the competition, with Year 11 students Gary Posnack from Curry High School and Warren Sager from Boorrigal High making it through to the finals. It was an extremely close match, with both boys playing excellent bowls. This is the first year the singles competition has been held, with trophies donated by Mr Ray Luxford from the Warners Bay Bowling Club and the Newcastle Permanent Building Society. So, after a closely fought battle at the Boolaroo Bowling Club today, Warren Sager came from behind to win the match, 21 shots to 19.
Most of the women have had experience in state netball squads, so the game at National Park Courts in Newcastle today was a battle royal. Newcastle in the green met the Eastwood-Ryde team in the 4th round of the State League. Newcastle is the only team outside the metropolitan area that takes part in the 16-round comp. Both teams played an extremely hard game, but Eastwood-Ryde came out the winners 45 to 34.
This is probably one of the biggest 10-kilometre races there is, so it's nice to come across to somewhere that I know and race in the race that I want to run in, really.
This is your first start for 10 months.
Yeah, that's right, so it's going to be very difficult for me.
How is your training been going this month?
Okay, not too spectacular, but better than last year. So fingers crossed, and hope I don't have any problems with injuries and things like that.
It's injury that has devastated Ovett's performances in recent months. Last year, he had to withdraw from the European Championships and the Commonwealth Games. Then he spent the winter getting well and taking special exercises. During that time, he suffered another setback through injury. So in Oslo, the risks and the dangers were never far from Ovett's mind. He was wearing the number 2 jersey. Ovett kept in the leading group throughout the race, but did not try to hang on when the eventual winner, Eamon Martin, who's also from Britain, broke out towards the end. At the finish, Martin won by a long way, but Ovett had enough in hand to dash into second place and revive hopes of restarting his brilliant international career.
Meanwhile, Italian Giuseppe Gariby won the Rome Marathon in the slow time of 2 hours, 15 minutes and 11 seconds, just 1 second ahead of Colombian Domingo Tibardoiza. Italy also took out the women's event, won by Alba Milana in 2 hours, 32 minutes and 57 seconds. She beat compatriot Rita Marchisio, who was 4 minutes behind. Freddie Spencer of the USA won his 3rd Grand Prix of the season in the 500cc division at Monza. Riding a Honda, Spencer beat Randy Mamola on a Suzuki, with another American, Eddie Lawson, on a Yamaha 3rd. America's former world champion Kenny Roberts fell when he left the circuit. No injuries allowed him to continue. He finished out of the top 10. America's former world champion Kenny Roberts fell when he left the circuit, but no injuries allowed him to continue, but he finished out of the top 10.
For example, Mr. Reagan said on the small island nation of Grenada in the Caribbean there were communist-built installations. It's just over a month since the President went on American television to reveal what he called previously classified information. Photographs of Grenada, he said, showed that the Cubans with Soviet backing were in the process of building an airfield. Who, Mr. Reagan asked, was the airfield intended for? Reporter John Snow went to the island of Grenada to find out.
It's a big relief walking around with about 15 daggers out from under my spine.
Yes, exactly.
Cessnock's a very parochial town, I suppose you could call them. They like to have winners on their side, and we weren't too unlucky against Western Suburbs. Unfortunately, we only had 11 men on the field but we led them early, and I thought we put up quite a credible performance against Western Suburbs. The performance against Norse was a dismal performance in my opinion, and I took the necessary action. We made 5 changes to the team. And we had another team change on the morning of the game. Unfortunately, I had to take disciplinary action against one of my players for not turning up, and he was dropped on the morning of the game.
But it came good against Strait.
It came good, and it came good exceptionally well. But I was more pleased with our teamwork in defence. They showed commitment in defence, which they haven't been showing in the last couple of games. I was very concerned about our tackling ability, but they proved to me on Sunday that they have got guts and they've got pride, and that's what I wanted to bring out of them this week.
Neil, the team you took in against Lakes United, to me, being a local boy here in Newcastle, looked more like a Cessnock team that I would have expected you would have picked earlier.
Well, the club was very happy because we actually had 6 local juniors playing in the first grade team. Guys that have grown up in Cessnock, and the local people can identify with those kids. They can see them coming good, and that's what I want to achieve up here. I'd like to see the local kids come good and earn their spot in first grade, and they did a fine job for me.
Good morning. I'm not going to thank you this morning, John. I don't think it was very nice of you to send us out here this morning at all. I don't think I'll ever forgive you, in fact. Very blustery out here at the moment. The wind from the south at about 25 to 30 knots, around 50 to 60 kilometres per hour. Waves, very, very messy, but there are some there. The swell's increasing from the south. We have waves around 1.2 to 1.5 metres at the open beaches, occasionally just a little bit bigger, but not very often. Unfortunately, due to that strong wind, conditions are very choppy, messy, bumpy, and basically unrideable at the moment. Although that wind is expected to drop a little during the day, so by this afternoon, conditions should be looking a little better for the board riders. If you'd like to go for a swim today, conditions just the reverse of yesterday. We now have sweeps to the north, strong rips at all of our city beaches, so please do take care, flagged areas only. And now the forecast issued by the Bureau for today. A few coastal showers, sunny periods in the upper Hunter, cool southerly winds at 10 to 20 knots, that's 20 to 40 kilometres per hour, slight to moderate seas on a moderate swell. Newcastle heading for a top today of 20 degrees, Scone expecting 21. High tide coming up at 8:26 this morning, 1.6 metres, low tide at 2:26 this afternoon at 0.4 of a metre. And the outlook for Thursday, cool, southeasterly winds and a few showers. Well, that's the story for today. If you're super keen on looking for waves, try Stockton, Nobbies and Blacksmiths. Maybe later this afternoon conditions are going to improve a little. And it's all right, John, I know you're not going to accept responsibility for sending us out here, but we know the truth. Back again tomorrow morning.
double-deck passenger carriages which will come with electrification, and so a second parallel tunnel has to be built. The contract to build the 200-metre long tunnel was recently re-let by the SRA after a problem with the original tender. Construction, which will cost a total of $2.5 million, will commence in the next few weeks. Meanwhile, work on the rest of the electrification is progressing. The masts and wiring for the electrification are now in place for most of the line from Wyong to Turalba, and substations have been constructed. Major work still to be carried out include several new bridges, one a new road bridge at Cardiff, and spacing of the lines for the wider carriages. However, the SRA is still confident electrification will reach Newcastle by 1984.
Thanks, John. Good morning. I think we both know who's got the better part of the deal this morning. I think it might rain today. A little bit of wetness out here at the moment. Waves still up around 1.5 to 1.8 metres. Still southerly winds. Conditions still terrible. Conditions are still very choppy, bumpy and messy at all of the open beaches in town. Not looking too good at all for the board riders. If you're super keen, it's the southern protected corners like Stockton, Nobbies and Blacksmiths. And they're about the only places you'll find waves today. If you're thinking about going for a swim, flagged areas only, sweeps to the north, strong rips at all of our city beaches. Not too good a day for the beach at all, I'm afraid. And the forecast issued by the Bureau for today, cloudy with a few showers. Mild day with southeast to easterly winds at 20 to 30 kilometres per hour. Slight seas on a moderate swell. Newcastle expecting a top today of 22 degrees. Up in the valley towards Scone, a top of 23 degrees. High tide will be at 7 minutes past 9 this morning at 1.6 metres. Low tide at 2 minutes to 3 this afternoon at 0.4 of a metre. And the outlook for Friday, mostly dry with morning fogs. Well, that's the story. Rain, waves around 1.8 metres, choppy conditions, southerly winds, terrible day for the beach. John, I wish I was back there instead of you. See you again tomorrow morning.
Some memories with some of the former fighter pilots who returned to Williamtown today for a reunion and a briefing on the RAAF's next aircraft, the F-A-18. Many of those present flew the Mustang, introduced in 1944 and phased out in 1959. These three aircraft are owned by Colin Pays of Scone, Squadron Leader Jeff Trafford of Amberley, and a Mr R. Eastgate of Sydney, who's loaned his Mustang to the RAAF Museum at Point Cook. Adding further to the historic flashback was an F-86 Sabre built in 1953 and donated back to the RAAF after Chipper history. Against leaden skies, almost 40 years of flying history formed up for an impressive flypast. Watching pilots, the sound and sight was pure magic. As the heavy rain closed in, one RAAF officer tripped that the Mustangs would now land if they could find the airport. They did. But an aerobatics display, which had also been planned, had to be cancelled. This time the weather had the last word.
The rain is just what's needed to help bring on winter crops throughout the valley. Farmers are hoping the falls will continue for a while to give the ground a good soaking. Falls varying from 11 metres at Maryville, 4 millimetres at Maitland and 1 millimetre at Tocal have been recorded. After such a bleak start to the season, there's only one way to describe the steady, reliable rainfall in the Hunter.
Ideal, it really is. It's the best month we've had for a long time, it really is.
What's it doing to the valley?
First, I suppose the most important thing is that it's making or promoting good growth of our winter pastures and our winter crops. That's the most important thing. I think the second most important thing is that it's got our late summer pastures going, like the kikuyu that we have here. And then the little bit of rain that we've just had in these last few weeks has just kept that soil moisture really good and just kept things just ticking along, so that we've got excellent growth. We've had excellent growth even though it hasn't been very heavy rain.
But whereabouts?
Only here in the Lower Hunter. And so for the Lower Hunter people, it's been ideal. But unfortunately, of course, it hasn't really got very far up the valley.
Our members at Newcastle classing facility will remain on strike, and the bans that are placed on in the other two stores will remain until such time as they give us a guarantee that all bulk wool and rehandling wool will remain in Newcastle for the next season. Also a guarantee of jobs for all the members employed by Newcastle classing facility. What we're asking is that a meeting be held then, once a resumption of work is arranged. Within 2 weeks we sit down and talk, and also we want a guarantee that the men stood down in the other stores will be paid for the time they've been stood down.
In Group 2 of the European Championships, the Soviet Union played spectacular soccer to beat Portugal 5-0. Sherenkov scored 2 goals, while others to Roydanov, Damianenko and Laranov. Meanwhile, in Copenhagen, Denmark scored a 1-0 victory over Greece in Group 3, the only goal scored by Soren Busk. The Group 7 match between Spain and the Republic of Ireland was won by Spain 2-0 to put them at the top of the group table. Santillana headed a goal after 51 minutes of the first half, and in the final minutes, Spain scored again. This time it was the result of a free kick by Juan Jose.